So I have the Moonlander from ZSA here, and it's a very interesting keyboard. Now I just want to be really clear about the deal here. So ZSA sent this keyboard to me in exchange for me making a couple of other films for them on the tenting process and a little unboxing video. They didn't ask me to do this review. This is just off my own back. It's all my own thoughts, and there's no direction here from them. So this is a genuine review. Now obviously if you've seen my other videos on the Planck keyboard, which I did buy with my own money and is my main kind of keyboard, the idea with that keyboard for me was that I could use the same keyboard on my Mac as I would when I take it out and use it portably with the iPad. Now obviously I've got the Moonlander, I don't want to let that sit in a shelf, so I'm working out a way where I can use the Planck and the Moonlander together. So the layout on the Moonlander is going to be an extension of the layout that I use on the Planck, so I don't have to relearn anything. The only thing is that I can do a little bit more when I'm at the desk with the Moonlander, but I'm not actually doing anything differently. But obviously most people probably aren't going to have the Planck and the Moonlander, so we won't dwell too much on that at this point, and instead we're going to take a little look at the details of the Moonlander itself. So they definitely came up with a really interesting design for this keyboard. It looks like nothing else on your desk. I've got it in white, so the white Apple trackpad can sit in the middle of the keyboard and just looks great on the desk. But what's really interesting about this is the ergonomics. Obviously this is a split keyboard, so the idea being you can have your hands at shoulder width apart instead of together in front of you. Now lots of comments on my Planck videos sort of seem to suggest that by using a keyboard where your hands are together you get this wrist angle, and I never actually found that. I felt that the angle that resulted in having your hands together was mostly taken up in the knuckles, and I did find that my wrist could stay relatively neutral even with the Planck keyboard. So for me, switching to this split keyboard, the most noticeable difference was really how my shoulders feel. So you know, by moving your hands out, your shoulders are really rotating back. And actually recently I had a massage from a sports therapist, and she said my scapulars were slightly winged, which was quite an alarming thing to hear. And so I was very consciously thinking about what my scapulars were doing when I'm in these different keyboard positions. And on the Planck, they do stick out more than when I have my hands at shoulder width apart. So for me that is quite an interesting discovery, and I think I will be sticking with the split keyboard when I'm doing the majority of my work on the desk here. I don't know in reality how much using a normal solid keyboard has contributed to that issue over my life or not, but it's certainly an interesting observation. So one of the other main ergonomic advantages of this keyboard is the fact that it tents up in the middle. So your hands are more at that angle than flat. Again, that's actually more of a pronounced problem if your hands are together on a normal keyboard. Having them flat feels a lot more awkward than sort of this shape. So that's definitely an advantage. And then the other interesting part of this is the fact that the thumb cluster is angled as well. So you angle that down and that just makes your hand more in this kind of closed shape rather than having to keep your thumb on the same plane as the rest of the keys. So by doing that, you're sort of operating it like that, which is obviously how your hand has kind of evolved to work. If you have smaller hands and you find that a little bit of a stretch sort of around the keyboard shape like that, you can actually bend it up instead. But to me that seems a little bit awkward, but then obviously I feel quite comfortable with it as it is over like that. But if I had smaller hands, I don't know, maybe that would be a nicer approach. But there's a lot of flexibility there. So then you've got the wrist support, which I'm not a massive fan of using a wrist support, because I find as soon as you start repeating a pressure on there, you start to you get that tingling nerve issue. And I actually felt that when I used a wrist support with the old 60% and Pro 2 keyboard before I got the Planck. And so what I like to do is just hover and have a keyboard where I don't have to lose that home orientation. So I can just hover the palms in space and not have any pressure on the base of my palms all the time. So luckily the wings, as they call them, the palm rests on the Moonlander are removable. So you can just pop them off and then you can actually sink your palms into the space where they were. So like the Planck, this is a hot swappable keyboard, which means you can switch the switches. So you can actually take the keycaps off and then pull the switches out of the board and replace those down the line with different ones. So that's great. If they wear out, you can change them. Or if you just fancy a change just for the different sort of tactile feel of a different set of switches, you can switch them out later. So like the Planck keyboard, the keycaps are really nice. They're lovely design. And what's interesting about it on here is they've actually not tried to create a default set. They've just given you mostly just blanks and then the letter keys. And there's a bottom row where they've given you the arrow keys and a couple of punctuation ones. And to me, actually, I would almost prefer, well, I would prefer that they just kept those to be blank as well, because the layout I'm currently using on this doesn't match. I would rather they just be blank so that it wasn't confusing. So the layout of the keys is columnar. I don't quite know how you pronounce that, but essentially it's a bit like the ortholinear grid in that you've got organized columns instead of that weird arbitrary stagger, which I've done another video on. But in this case, there is actually a slight offset which makes them easier for your fingers to get to. So this is like what, you know, an actual ergonomic stagger, so it makes it easier to land on the rows. So you've got organized columns, but there is a slight stagger between the vertical columns. But actually switching between the ortholinear Planck and this layout is fine. You know, it's close enough that you sort of just adapt to each one fine. You know, there's no trouble. It just feels slightly more natural on this one. And obviously on this keyboard, we've got the number row across the top. So it's closer to a 60% kind of style keyboard than the 40% Planck. But again, I'm not really a fan of that top row. I know I can't reach to them without sort of losing that home orientation. I don't like jumping over a row to get to another row. I might find that I can create some sort of Mac specific shortcuts, but again, I don't want to do anything that I would miss when I go back to the Planck. So the thumb clusters themselves have got these two big sort of pointy buttons at the top, which I have just for escape and enter at the moment, but I'm still not really using those because I'm so used to using my palms on the bottom corners from the Planck layout. And then you've got the 3 keys in each thumb cluster as well. So there's basically, you'll never find yourself wanting another key to do any customization on. You know, there's loads there. So the customization side of things, of course, like the Planck, is amazing. The Oryx software that you can use to customize the layouts and create layers and design all the color schemes, it's all brilliant. It works really well. You can create this amazing keyboard, basically just set it up exactly how you like, which is really nice for me in my case, because obviously I want to create this sort of, it's like almost like a Planck Plus experience. I've got my main layout that I have on the Planck, and I want to create a desktop version of that using this keyboard, so I can do that in the software, no trouble at all. So when I first made those videos on the Planck, a lot of people were saying, you know, the split keyboard is going to be better, and I never disagreed with that. I can definitely see the appeal with the split keyboard, but I didn't actually want to buy 2 separate keyboards, so I decided to go with the one that I could use in as many situations as possible. And I still think that's a really good shout. If you want to just have one keyboard, the Planck is the most versatile because it is portable. But if you don't need the portability, or you're going to have both, then this is a really nice setup for the desk. I mean, they've included the carry case, but I don't think the practicalities of loosening everything and flattening and folding everything and taking it in the carry cases, it's always going to be much easier just to grab another keyboard, and in my case I've got the Planck there, so that's perfect for that. And it's actually not so crazy even thinking about having these 2 keyboards in your life. Because if you were, you know, just following the Apple idea and the ecosystem that they sort of force you into, if you had the iPad and the Mac, they'd have you buy the Magic Keyboard for the iPad in addition to your Mac keyboard. So you still got 2 keyboards, you know, if you went down this sort of Apple suggested route, and you'd be probably spending similar kinds of money on those 2 keyboards as you would with these 2. So I think it's, you know, actually having both isn't a crazy idea. It's obviously very expensive, you know, they're already quite expensive keyboards, but you're talking about this amazing customization sort of packaged up and made very accessible. You know, the whole thing is not geeky. Their software is polished, the products are polished, you just buy them and it works. You know, that you haven't got to build the thing, you haven't got to do any sort of weird coding to get it to work. You can just use these and they are awesome.